the twin sons of Arvian rose over the alien kingdom, casting golden light across the stone towers and metal walls. It was a world of strength and honor, where warriors were praised above all else. The people of this land lived by one belief: only the strong could lead and only the fearless could protect the kingdom. Those who were weak were left behind, forgotten in the shadows of the powerful. In the great palace, the alien king sat on his throne, his crown shining under the light. He was tall, armored in silver plates, and his voice carried the weight of command. This king had ruled for many years, guiding his people through countless battles. His warriors were fierce, his armies feared, and his name respected across the stars. Yet behind all his strength, there was one truth that troubled him deeply: his only daughter was weak. Her name was Myra. From the moment she was born, the elders had whispered that she would never be a warrior. She was smaller than the other children, often ill, and never able to lift the heavy weapons of her people. While other young fighters trained with blades and staffs, Myra watched from the side, struggling to keep up. Many mocked her, calling her unfit for the bloodline of kings. The king did not hate his daughter, but he could not bear the thought of shame. His enemies would laugh if they learned the princess of Arvian was fragile. His own people would lose faith if they saw their future heir stumble in battle. So the king decided upon a choice that shocked many in the palace: he would give his daughter away. Not to death, not to slavery, but to someone who might take her far from the kingdom. That someone was a human named Aaron. Aaron had come from a distant planet. Unlike the alien warriors, he was not born into power. He had earned his survival through war and hardship, fighting in battles where cunning meant more than strength. Years ago, Aaron had saved the king during a sudden ambush. The king never forgot this act and respected Aaron as a rare ally among humans. Yet most of the aliens still looked down on him, for in their eyes, humans were weak compared to their kind. The decision was made one quiet night. The king summoned Aaron to his chamber. The great hall was empty, its walls lined with weapons from past victories. The air was heavy, as if it carried the weight of a secret no one else was meant to hear. The king stood tall, but his voice was low when he spoke. "You once saved my life, human," the king said, his tone steady. "I will honor that act forever. Tonight, I ask you to take something precious, something I cannot keep in my own house. My daughter, Myra. She is not strong enough to live here. If she remains, she will only be a burden. Take her with you, far from this place." Aaron was silent for a long time. He looked at the king, then at Myra, who stood quietly in the shadows of the hall. Her eyes were lowered, her hands trembling, and her small frame seemed even smaller in that vast room. She expected rejection. She expected to be cast away like broken stone. Yet when Aaron finally spoke, his voice carried warmth, not pity. "I do not see her as weak," Aaron said. "She only needs a chance. If you allow it, I will take her. But know this: I will not treat her as fragile. I will treat her as someone who can grow strong, if she chooses." The king studied him with sharp eyes. For a moment, he almost spoke words of doubt, but something in Aaron's steady voice stopped him. He gave a single nod. "Then she is yours to guide," the king declared. The next morning, the decision spread across the palace. Some whispered that the king was wise, freeing himself of a weak heir. Others whispered that giving his daughter to a human was dishonorable. Myra heard every word as she walked through the halls, her head bowed low. She felt shame, fear, and confusion all at once. Was she truly so unworthy that her own father would give her away? Aaron walked beside her, silent but calm. His presence was different from the others. He did not stare at her with scorn, nor did he speak cruelly. He simply walked, as if the journey ahead was normal and not a burden. Myra could not understand why he did not see her as everyone else did. When they reached the gates of the palace, Myra turned back for the last time. The king stood high above, watching from the balcony. He did not wave, did not smile. His face was carved in stone, as it always was. Myra's chest ached, yet she held back her tears. She knew her father had already chosen. The gates opened, and Myra stepped into the world beyond the palace walls. Aaron placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Do not think of this as exile," he said. "Think of this as a new beginning. What you become next is not what they decide. It is what you decide." Myra looked up at him, unsure how to answer. Her heart was heavy, but a small spark lit inside her. His words were unlike anything she had heard before. No one had ever told her she could choose what to become. The journey began across the deserts of Arvian, where red sands stretched beyond the horizon. Myra struggled at first. The heat weighed her down, and her steps were slow. Aaron did not rush her, but he also did not let her quit. He shared water, taught her how to cover her face from the burning winds, and encouraged her to keep moving. At night, under the stars, Myra asked questions she had never dared to ask at the palace. "Why do you help me?" she whispered one evening as the fire burned low. Aaron stared into the flames before answering. "Because I see what others do not. They look at weakness, but I see possibility. Where I come from, even the smallest can rise if they learn, if they fight, if they refuse to give up. I will not promise it will be easy. But if you are willing, I will teach you." Myra listened, her heart stirred by the quiet strength in his words. For the first time in her life, she wondered if perhaps she was not broken. Perhaps she was simply waiting to find her path. As the days passed, Myra began to see things differently. Aaron showed her how to watch the sky for signs of storms, how to track footprints in the sand, and how to balance her body so she would not fall easily. None of these lessons required brute strength, only patience and focus. Slowly, her movements became more steady. Her spirit, once dim, started to glow with hope. Far behind them, the alien king sat in his throne, hearing reports of his daughter's departure. He told himself he had done what was necessary. Yet in the silence of the night, even he wondered if perhaps he had sent away more than weakness. Myra did not know what awaited her beyond the desert, but she walked beside Aaron with a heart less heavy than before. The gift her father had given away was about to become something greater, though neither she nor the king could yet see it. The desert journey had tested Myra's strength, yet it was only the beginning. When she left her father's palace, she was uncertain, fragile, and full of doubt. But Aaron saw more in her. He had promised not to treat her as weak, and now his promise began to shape her days. They arrived at a camp near the edge of the desert, where a river flowed between rocky hills. Aaron chose this place carefully, for it was safe and full of resources. There was water to drink, caves for shelter, and enough space for training. Myra had never lived outside the palace walls, and everything here felt new and strange. She had to fetch her own water, gather her own food, and build her own fire. At first, she failed in each task. The first night at camp, she tried to start a fire but could not. Her hands shook, the stones slipped, and she grew frustrated. Aaron watched patiently, then took the stones and showed her again. His movements were slow and clear. Sparks flew, flames rose, and the fire came alive. Do not rush, Aaron said. Strength is not only in arms but in patience. You must learn to wait, to breathe, and to try again. Myra nodded silently, ashamed of her failure but comforted by his calm tone. She tried again the next night, and though it took her longer than Aaron, she managed to spark her first small flame. Her heart lifted, and for the first time, she felt pride in a simple task. Aaron built her training step by step. Each morning, he woke her before the sun rose. The sky was painted in soft colors as he made her run along the riverbank. Myra hated it at first. Her legs burned, her chest ached, and she begged him to let her stop. But Aaron only ran beside her, steady as the rising sun, speaking words that gave her courage. Do not stop. Every step you take is a step away from who you were. Every step is a step toward who you can be. Myra forced herself forward, her breaths heavy, her feet stumbling. At the end of the run, she collapsed on the ground, gasping. Aaron did not scold her. He offered her water, smiled faintly, and told her she had done well for the first day. The next day was harder, yet she ran again. Each day added more distance. Each day her legs grew stronger. Slowly, her body began to change. The weakness that once weighed on her like chains started to fade, replaced by a strength she had never known. Training did not end with running. Aaron taught her how to fight, though not with the heavy weapons her people used. He gave her a wooden staff, light but strong. Power is not only in the size of your weapon, he told her. It is in how you use it. Control matters more than force. At first, Myra struggled to even hold the staff correctly. It slipped from her hands, struck the ground, and sometimes even hit her own feet. Aaron showed her how to grip it, how to stand with balance, and how to move her body as one with the weapon. He made her repeat simple strikes again and again until her arms ached. Myra grew frustrated. She shouted once, throwing the staff to the ground. I cannot do this. I am not like you. I am not like my people. I am weak. Aaron picked up the staff and placed it back in her hands. His eyes were firm but kind. You are not weak. You are untrained. Weakness is only the beginning. Strength is what you build when you do not give up. His words stayed in her heart. That night, as the fire burned, she thought about them again and again. For the first time, she wondered if her weakness was not her fate but her starting point. The days turned into weeks. Myra's hands became calloused from the staff. Her feet grew firm from running across sand and stone. She learned how to block, how to strike, and how to move swiftly. Aaron sparred with her often, never using his full strength but never going easy either. Each match pushed her further. She lost every time at first, but slowly, she began to land small hits. Each small victory lit her spirit like fire. Beyond fighting, Aaron also taught her the art of awareness. He made her sit silently by the river and listen. At first, she heard nothing but water. But soon, her ears picked up the rustle of leaves, the steps of small animals, and even the distant cry of a bird. Aaron explained that a warrior's strength was not only in action but also in perception. You must see what others do not see, he told her. You must hear what others ignore. When you are aware, you are already stronger than half your enemies. Myra practiced, closing her eyes and letting her senses sharpen. She began to notice things she had never paid attention to before. The world around her grew larger, richer, and more alive. But the hardest lesson came not from Aaron's teaching, but from her own heart. One evening, After a long day of training, Myra sat by the fire with tears in her eyes. Eren noticed and asked quietly, "Why do you cry?" She hesitated, then spoke the truth. "Because I fear I will never be enough. No matter how hard I try, I will never be the warrior my father wanted." Eren was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You must understand this. You are not here to become what your father wanted. You are here to become what you can be. Your strength is not to match his image, but to build your own. Do not fight for his approval. Fight for yourself." Myra looked into the fire, her tears drying. His words struck her deeper than any weapon could. That night, something inside her shifted. She no longer trained only to escape shame. She trained because she wanted to discover herself. The weeks became months. Myra's body grew lean, her movements sharp, her mind focused. The fragile girl who had left the palace was slowly becoming someone new. Her strikes grew precise, her runs longer, her endurance stronger. Even Eren began to notice the change in her eyes. They no longer looked downward with doubt but forward with determination. Yet the training was not without struggle. There were days when Myra's body refused to move, when her arms felt like stone, and her legs like fire. On those days, she wanted to quit. But each time, Eren reminded her with quiet words. "You are closer than you think. Do not let pain stop you. Pain is the forge where strength is made." Myra learned to embrace the pain. Each ache was proof that she was growing. Each scar, each bruise was a mark of progress. She began to see beauty in the struggle. One day, after months of training, Eren tested her in a sparring match. They stood by the riverbank, the water rushing behind them. Myra gripped her staff, her breath steady. Eren attacked with swift strikes, forcing her to block, dodge, and counter. She moved with speed she had never known. For the first time, she lasted longer than a few moments. She struck back, her staff hitting Eren's side. He smiled, even as he blocked the next strike. The fight ended with Eren disarming her, but Myra stood tall, her chest heaving with effort. She did not feel shame this time. She felt proud. "You have grown," Eren said with a smile. "You are no longer the girl I met in the palace. You are on your way to becoming a warrior." Myra's heart swelled with pride. She was not yet fearless, not yet strong enough to face the world, but she was no longer helpless. She was becoming something new, something greater than she had ever believed possible. As the sun set over the hills, Myra looked at the horizon. For the first time in her life, she believed she had a future of her own making. The training had changed her, not only in body but in spirit. She was still her father's daughter, but she was also something more, a student of the human who had given her hope. And deep within her, the flame of courage was beginning to burn. The months of training changed Myra in many ways. She no longer walked with her head low. She no longer feared to try and fail. Her steps were steady, her body stronger, her mind sharper. Eren saw the change every day, but Myra did not realize how much she had grown until the world itself tested her. The test came when danger approached the borders of her father's kingdom. A rival clan, long bitter toward the alien king, had gathered strength in secret. They were warriors born for battle, tall and fierce, carrying weapons forged from dark stone. Their leader swore that the king of Arvian would fall, and his people would be conquered. When the king learned of their advance, he summoned his generals. The palace filled with the sound of clashing armor and heavy voices as strategies were discussed. Myra's name was not spoken. In the minds of the generals, she did not exist as a warrior. To them, she was still the fragile girl the king had given away. But Myra heard of the invasion through messengers in the villages. She stood by the river, staff in hand, her heart beating fast. This was the moment she had trained for, even if no one believed it. She turned to Aaron, her eyes steady. "I want to fight," she said. Aaron studied her for a long moment. "If you fight, you risk death. You are not bound to this war. You could remain safe here." Myra shook her head. "All my life, I have been told to hide. To stay behind walls, to watch others protect me. I am done with that. I may not be the strongest, but I will stand. If I die, at least I die as someone who tried." Aaron's gaze softened. He saw no fear in her, only determination. He gave a slow nod. "Then we will fight together." The journey back to the borderlands was long. Myra felt the weight of her decision with every step. Villages along the way whispered of the rival clans' cruelty. Fields were burned, families fled, and soldiers prepared for war. The people stared at Myra with surprise. Some recognized her as the king's daughter. Their eyes showed doubt, but Myra walked with her head high. She carried no crown, only her staff, but her spirit felt heavier than any crown could. When she reached the outpost near the border, her father's army was already preparing. The sight filled her with awe and fear. Rows of armored warriors sharpened their weapons. War beasts roared in their cages, ready to be unleashed. The air smelled of iron and fire. The king stood at the front, tall and commanding as ever. His eyes fell on Myra, and surprise flickered across his face. "You should not be here," he said sharply. "This is not your place." Myra did not bow her head. "I came because it is my choice. I may not be strong as others, but I will fight." The king's voice turned hard. "You are still weak. You will be a burden in battle. Go back before you shame us all." The words cut deep, but Myra did not falter. She gripped her staff tightly. "I am not here to prove myself to you. I am here because I cannot stand by while others fight for me. I will stand with them, whether you allow it or not." The soldiers nearby murmured at her courage. Some laughed quietly, others frowned, but a few looked at her with curiosity. The king clenched his jaw, anger and confusion in his eyes. Before he could speak again, Aaron stepped forward. "She has trained harder than anyone I know," Aaron said. "Do not judge her by who she was. Judge her by what she has become." The king's eyes narrowed. He wanted to reject them both, yet the weight of battle pressed close. Finally, he turned away with a sharp wave of his hand. "Do as you wish. But if she falls, her blood is on your hands." That night, Myra prepared for her first true battle. She sat by the fire with her staff across her knees. Fear gnawed at her chest, but she remembered Aaron's words: courage was not the absence of fear but the choice to face it. The next morning, the rival clan attacked. The sky thundered with their war cries as they poured across the plains, weapons gleaming in the light. The ground shook beneath their charge. The king's warriors formed ranks, shields raised, spears braced. The clash of armies was like a storm of steel. Myra stood at the edge, heart racing. The noise was overwhelming, the sight terrifying. For a moment, doubt tried to return. Then Aaron's voice cut through the chaos. "Remember your training. Do not think of their strength. Think of your speed, your mind. Trust yourself." Myra took a deep breath and stepped forward into the storm. The first enemy who faced her was taller, broader, and armed with a blade of dark stone. He sneered at her small frame. But when he struck, Myra moved swiftly, dodging his heavy blow. Her staff snapped against his arm, forcing him back. Surprise flashed in his eyes before she struck again, this time knocking his weapon aside. With a final sharp move, she struck his chest and sent him to the ground. Myra's heart pounded, but she felt no weakness. She felt alive. Another enemy came at her, then another. She blocked, dodged, countered. Her movements flowed as Aaron had taught her. She was not stronger than them, but she was quicker, sharper, more focused. Where they relied on brute force, she used patience and skill. Each time she struck, she felt herself rising beyond the fragile girl she once was. All around her, the battle raged. The king's warriors shouted, blood stained the ground, and the rival clan pushed fiercely. Yet Myra held her ground. Aaron fought nearby, his blade cutting through the enemy, but his eyes always watched her. He saw the courage burning in her, the fire she had found within herself. As the battle dragged on, Myra faced a warrior unlike the others. This one was tall and armored, his strength clear in every movement. He laughed when he saw her, mocking her with cruel words. "You are no warrior. You are a child." But Myra did not back away. She raised her staff, her voice steady. "I am not who I was. Face me if you dare." The warrior attacked with heavy swings. Myra dodged swiftly, her staff striking his legs, his arms, never giving him time to recover. Rage made him reckless, and Myra used it against him. Finally, with a sharp strike to his chest, she sent him crashing to the ground. The soldiers nearby gasped. Many had thought she would fall easily, yet she stood tall over her enemy. For the first time, respect flickered in their eyes. When the rival clan finally retreated, the battlefield lay in silence except for the groans of the wounded. The king surveyed the field with pride for his army's victory. Then his eyes fell on Myra. She stood with her staff in hand, blood and dirt marking her clothes, but her spirit unbroken. The king's face softened for a moment. He did not speak, but his silence carried more than words. He had seen her fight. He had seen her stand. That night, as the fires burned and the wounded were cared for, Myra sat quietly. Her body ached, her hands were sore, but her heart was filled with something new, a deep, unshakable pride. She had fought, she had endured, and she had proven to herself that she was no longer fragile. Aaron sat beside her, smiling faintly. "You stood like a warrior today." Myra looked at him, her voice steady. "No, I stood as myself. That is enough." And in that moment, Myra knew that the trial had changed her forever. The battle at the border changed more than Myra's life. It also changed how others saw her. The soldiers who once mocked her weakness now spoke of her courage in hushed voices. They had seen her stand against warriors twice her size, moving with speed and precision. They had seen her refuse to retreat when fear might have crushed another. By the time Myra returned to camp, whispers of her bravery had already spread. Some called her a miracle, others a surprise, and a few still doubted her. But one truth was certain: she was no longer invisible. For Myra, the victory did not feel like the end. It felt like the beginning of something greater. She knew she had much more to learn. She also knew the rival clan had not been defeated fully. They had only retreated to gather strength again. Their leader would not rest after such humiliation. That night, as fires burned across the camp and soldiers celebrated, Myra sat quietly near the river. She stared at her reflection in the dark water. The face looking back at her was the same, yet her eyes were different. They carried light, a fire she had never seen before. Aaron sat beside her. His expression was calm, but there was pride in his voice. "You fought well today. You did not only survive. You inspired others." Myra shook her head. "I only did what you taught me. Without you, I would still be the girl everyone called weak." Aaron looked at her firmly. "No, I gave you the tools, but you chose to use them. You chose to endure, to rise, to fight. That was not me. That was you." His words made her chest warm. For so long she had believed her life was decided by others, but now she saw her own power. She was no longer walking a path forced on her. She was building her own. In the days that followed, Myra continued to train. The soldiers watched her with new respect. Some even asked her to spar with them, curious to test her skills. At first, they underestimated her, thinking her victory had been luck. But when they fought her, they discovered she was quick, clever, and relentless. One by one, they began to see her not as a weak princess but as a warrior in her own right. Soon, Myra's name spread beyond the camp. Villagers whispered of the princess who had stood in battle. Children pretended to fight with sticks, shouting her name. The rival clan heard these stories as well, and their anger grew. To them, her rise was an insult. If the daughter once abandoned as weak could defeat their warriors, then their pride was broken. Their leader swore revenge. He gathered an even larger force, preparing to crush the kingdom once and for all. Spies carried word of this to the king, and the palace filled with worry. The enemy would not come in secret this time. They would march with fire and fury. The king gathered his generals again, but even they seemed uneasy. The rival clans' numbers were greater than before. A direct fight would cost many lives. Strategy was needed, but the generals argued endlessly without agreement. Myra sat at the edge of the hall, listening. She was not meant to speak in such meetings, but as she heard their plans, her thoughts grew restless. She had learned not only how to fight but also how to think differently. Aaron had shown her that victory was not always about strength. It was about using the mind as well as the body. Finally, when the generals fell into silence, Myra stood. Her voice was calm but strong. "If you face them directly, you will lose many soldiers. You must not meet them with brute strength. You must strike where they are blind, weaken them before the final clash." The hall grew quiet. Many stared at her in shock. A few laughed, but others waited to hear more. The king looked at her sharply. "And what do you suggest?" he asked. Myra took a breath. "Divide their force. Send scouts to lead them into traps. Strike at their supplies so they cannot feed their army. Do not fight where they are strong. Fight where they are weak. When they are exhausted and broken, then we face them." Her words carried weight, for they came not from pride but from thought. Aaron's lessons echoed in every sentence. Some generals scoffed, but others nodded slowly. Even the king did not dismiss her outright. He studied her, seeing not the fragile child he once cast away, but a mind sharpened by struggle. After long debate, the king agreed to try her plan. Scouts were sent, traps laid, and small groups of soldiers struck the enemy's supplies at night. Slowly, the rival clan began to falter. They grew hungry, weary, and angry. Their leader pushed harder, but his army lost strength with every passing day. When the time came for the final battle, Myra stood at the front. This time, she did not hide behind soldiers. She was given command of a small unit. The warriors under her had once doubted her, but now they followed her orders without question. They had seen her courage, and they trusted her judgment. On the morning of battle, Myra walked among them. She spoke simply, but her words carried fire. We are not the largest army. We are not the strongest. But we are clever. We are united. And today, we fight not just for victory, but for our future. Stand with me, and we will not fall. The warriors raised their voices in reply, their faith lifting her spirit. Aaron stood nearby, silent but proud. He knew she had become more than he had hoped. She was no longer just his student. She was a leader. The enemy came like a storm, their leader roaring at the front. The ground trembled with their charge. Yet this time, Myra was ready. She guided her unit with quick commands, striking where the enemy lines were weak. Her soldiers moved with precision, cutting through confusion and fear. Aaron fought fiercely by her side, but he allowed her to lead. He watched as she guided her people with courage and wisdom. The fire inside her burned brighter with every command. She was no longer following his shadow. She was walking her own path. As the battle raged, the rival clan pushed harder, desperate to break the king's army. But Myra's strategy held. The enemy was divided, their strength scattered. Slowly, the tide turned. The king's army, once uncertain, now fought with renewed spirit. At the height of the battle, Myra faced the rival leader himself. He towered over her, his blade heavy with rage. He laughed when he saw her, calling her weak once more. But Myra did not flinch. She raised her staff, her eyes steady. You called me weak before, she said firmly. But today, I stand as a warrior. Their clash was fierce. The leader struck with brute force, but Myra moved with speed and precision. She struck his legs, his arms, forcing him to stumble. Every move she made carried the weight of her training, the lessons of Aaron, and the strength she had built through pain. Finally, with a sharp strike to his chest, she brought him down. The battlefield grew silent for a moment. Soldiers on both sides stared in shock. The leader of the rival clan lay defeated by the daughter once thought weak. The rival soldiers faltered, their spirit broken. The king's army surged forward, driving them back. Victory belonged to Arvian. When the battle ended, cheers rose across the field. Soldiers lifted their weapons, shouting Myra's name. For the first time, they called her not princess, not weakness, but warrior. The king stood watching. His face was unreadable, but his eyes lingered on Myra. In that silence, even he could not deny what she had become. That night, as the fires burned bright with celebration, Myra sat with Aaron. Her body ached, her hands were bruised, but her spirit felt unshakable. She had not only fought. She had led. She had risen from the shadows into the fire, and now she burned like a flame that could not be ignored. Aaron looked at her with pride. You are no longer the girl I once met. You are something greater. Myra smiled faintly, her eyes shining with determination. I am not finished. This is only the beginning. And so the rising flame of Myra's spirit spread across the kingdom, lighting the hearts of her people. She was no longer given away. She was no longer forgotten. She was becoming the fearless warrior destiny had hidden inside her all along. The days after the battle were filled with both relief and preparation. The rival clan had been driven back, but their presence still loomed like a shadow. The king's kingdom was safe for now, yet the people knew that a true peace required vigilance. Soldiers repaired walls, villagers rebuilt homes, and scouts were sent to watch the borders. Myra moved among them, not as a princess hiding in the palace, but as a leader whose courage had inspired many. For the first time, the king did not dismiss her. He watched quietly from his throne as Myra oversaw training for the younger soldiers. She corrected their mistakes, encouraged their efforts, and demonstrated techniques she had learned from Aaron. Soldiers who had once laughed at her took her advice seriously, following her instructions with respect. They trusted her not because she was royalty, but because she had proven herself in battle. Aaron stood nearby, observing with quiet pride. He had trained her, yes, but Myra's strength now came from herself. Every decision, every command, every strike was hers. She had grown into someone neither fragile nor timid. She had become a warrior. One morning, a messenger arrived from the outer villages. He brought urgent news: a small group of the rival clan had been spotted near the eastern plains. They were attempting to regroup and strike isolated settlements. Without hesitation, Myra organized a team of soldiers and volunteers, preparing to move immediately. Before leaving, she approached her father. The king stood in the great hall, his expression unreadable. Myra met his gaze steadily. "I am going," she said. "If they are allowed to harm our people, it will be our failure. I will lead the group myself." The king's eyes narrowed. He had long feared for her safety. Yet he could not deny the fire in her eyes, the confidence in her stance. He finally spoke, his voice steady. "You have grown much. Do not let your courage blind you. Lead wisely, or you will lose more than you can bear." Myra nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility. "I will not fail." As she departed with her team, Aaron followed silently, knowing she had earned her place as a leader. Their journey to the eastern plains was swift but cautious. Myra's mind was alert to every sound, every movement. She taught her soldiers how to move quietly, how to read the terrain, and how to anticipate the enemy's strategy. The rival clan was cunning, but Myra's planning gave them an edge. When they reached the plains, they discovered the enemy camped in a small valley. Myra observed silently, analyzing their positions. The rival clan was outnumbered but desperate. Myra knew that a direct attack would be costly. She needed to strike cleverly. She called her soldiers together. "We will not charge blindly," she instructed. "We will split their forces. Some of us will create distractions, while the rest move to surround them. Timing and coordination are our weapons." The soldiers listened carefully, inspired by her confidence. Myra led the distraction team herself, drawing the enemy out of their camp. Her movements were precise, her staff striking when needed, her body agile and quick. The rival clan's warriors, expecting fear, instead faced control and strategy. The rest of her team moved as she had instructed, flanking the enemy and cutting off their retreat. The rival clan was caught in a trap they had not anticipated. Confusion and panic spread through their ranks. Myra's planning and leadership had turned the battle before it had truly begun. In the heart of the fight, Myra encountered the rival leader's second in command, a warrior known for his cunning. He lunged at her with a heavy blade, hoping to test her strength. Myra dodged swiftly, her staff striking his side and knocking him off balance. She pressed her advantage, moving with precision, and forced him to surrender. When the skirmish ended, the rival clan was scattered and broken. They retreated for good, and the villages they had hoped to attack remained safe. Myra's team returned victorious, their respect for her deepened beyond measure. They cheered her name, not only as the princess but as a true warrior. Upon returning to the kingdom, the king awaited her. He observed the scene as Myra's soldiers recounted the battle, praising her courage and leadership. For the first time, the king saw clearly what others had already acknowledged: his daughter was no longer weak. He approached Myra silently. She straightened as he came near, uncertain of what he would say. The king's voice was low but filled with approval. "You have become a warrior, Myra," he said. "Not because of blood, not because of title, but because of your courage and your choices. I see now that I misjudged you." Myra bowed her head respectfully. "I only did what I could, father. I fought not for your approval, but for our people." The king's eyes softened, and he nodded. "That is the mark of a true leader. You have not only protected our kingdom but inspired it. From this day, you are no longer my weak daughter. You are my daughter, and a warrior of Arvian." Word of Myra's rise spread quickly. Soldiers, villagers, and allies spoke of the girl who had been given away as weak and had returned as a fearless warrior. Her courage became a symbol of hope. She trained others, led them in defense, and inspired them to see strength not just in size or power, but in will, strategy, and determination. Myra's life continued in a rhythm of leadership and learning. She faced challenges, taught others, and pushed herself to grow stronger. Her bond with Aaron remained steadfast. He continued to guide her, though she had long surpassed the student stage. He saw the warrior she had become, knowing his lessons had planted seeds, but that her spirit had grown them into a flame. One evening, Myra stood on the balcony of the palace. The twin suns of Arvian were setting, painting the sky in orange and purple. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the fragile girl who had left the palace months ago, full of doubt and fear. She remembered the desert, the training, the battles, and the nights of reflection. Each moment had shaped her into the person she was now. Aaron joined her quietly, standing beside her without speaking. Myra smiled faintly. "I never imagined I could become this," she said softly. Aaron looked at her with quiet pride. "You did not imagine, because you had not yet seen yourself. The warrior you are today was always inside, waiting to rise." Myra gazed at the horizon. "I will continue to rise. I will continue to protect, to fight, and to lead. I am not done learning. I am not done becoming stronger." The king approached, standing behind them silently. Myra did not bow this time. She had earned her place. "You have shown all of us what it means to be a true warrior," the king said. "Your courage has changed the kingdom. Your strength has inspired our people. From this day, Arvian will remember not only your name but your deeds." Myra felt a sense of peace and determination. She had overcome doubt, fear, and weakness. She had risen above the expectations of others and, more importantly, above her own limitations. The warrior she had become was not just for battle, but for guiding her people, protecting them, and leading them into a future full of hope. As night fell and stars filled the sky, Myra knew that her journey was not over. There would always be new challenges, new threats, and new trials. But she no longer feared them. She had learned that courage was stronger than fear, determination stronger than doubt, and will stronger than weakness. The kingdom slept peacefully that night, safe under the protection of a warrior who had once been thought weak. Myra's name would be remembered, not as a fragile princess given away, but as a fearless warrior who rose to greatness. And in the quiet moments, when she looked at the stars and felt the cool night wind on her face, Myra knew the truth that had guided her from the beginning: true strength comes not from birth, but from heart, mind, and the choice to rise when the world doubts you.